this is George Lopez of ABC's George Lopez. That's right. I'm with my man Harv Roman. I wake up dancing in Chicago.
So many things that's held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. I know we've got a long, long way to go, and where we'll end up, I don't know. But we won't let nothing hold us back. We're putting our show together, we're polishing up our act. And if you've ever been held down before, I know you refuse to be held down anymore. Well, don't you let nothing stand in your way. I want y'all to listen to every word I say, every word I say. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. Stopping us now. We got the groove.
AM 1590 is WCGO, where Chicago goes for Club Kids Radio on a Saturday morning. That is McFadden and Whitehead. Ain't no stopping us now from the middle 70s. Why the heck am I playing that? Let me tell you, that was one of the theme songs for the Von Humboldt School class of 2011 graduation. Sitting ovation to all of them. My thanks to Angel Castillo, who got me out there to deliver the commencement speech. And my thanks also to Ms. King and Ms. Guillermo, who the principal and the assistant principal, who allowed me to speak to the kids. And one of the things that I said was kind of an interesting thing that it just came off as I thought about things. And I told the guys and the girls, the class of 2011 at Von Humboldt School, I told them, Eminem at your age was not known as Eminem. Says that's Marshall Mathers. That's a Lady Gaga. Was not Lady Gaga back when she was in 8th grade. She was Georgetta Hermanetti. There's all kinds of stories that we could talk about. Barack Hussein Obama. That was just a funny name in 8th grade. Nobody knew what he was going to become, and nobody knows what you, the class of 2011, is going to become. But we do know that a lot of you have the potential to do just about whatever it is that you want to do. And I can't recreate the speech right now on a Saturday morning. It's early and I don't have anything in front of me to read from. But it was a very, very, very big honor for me to go back to Von Humboldt School, the school where I was the very first club director of a school-based club at Von Humboldt School back in 2002. And then I went to cut the ribbon over at the Miguel A. Barreto Union League Boys and Girls Club on Crystal and Washtenaw. And so Von Humboldt School is always going to have something in my heart. And I got to see kids that I hadn't seen in like 2.5 years walking the aisle. The same kids that I saw growing up when they were 6, 7 years old. You know, it was a pretty neat thing. My thanks to Maria Ramos. She shot the video for me, which should be on YouTube if it's not up already. So you'll be able to see my speech and say, wow, that was either motivational or maybe you shouldn't talk too much anymore, Harv. Anyway, another exciting edition of Club Kids Radio on a Saturday morning. George Lopez, our buddy, our pal, our homie, is in town. He has been in town for the last few days for the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival presented by TBS. And I really tried to get an all-new interview with George Lopez, and he's got so many people representing him now on the West Coast, and then they had somebody that was doing publicity here in Chicago, and he is so much in demand that I couldn't get a hold of him in order to do an interview for this particular edition of Club Kids Radio. And I said, well, wait a minute. Some of you may not have heard the original interviews that George Lopez and I did beginning back in what was the first interview I ever did with George? It was 1992. Do the math. That was like 18, 19 years ago. So on this edition of Club Kids Radio, what if I went to the Wayback Machine and I played excerpts of conversations between George Lopez and I some that have not been aired since they originally aired, which is either 92 or 93. I think the last interview I did with him was in 2002. So why don't you just sit back and listen? He's a funny guy. He's in town. If you can go to the Rosemont and see him, go ahead. Or if you were at the Park West last night, he did Viva las Risas. And I'm hoping that I made it there. I don't even know if I made it there because it's Saturday and my eyes are all foggy and my ears are cloudy. Anyhow, I'm talking too much, man. Congratulations to the class of 2011, not only at Von Humboldt School, but everywhere else. Over at CICS Irving Park, it was a great year for you guys, and we're going to miss some of you who are moving on, and the rest of you who are coming back, I can't wait to work with you again. But I need to do some radio now. It's Harv Roman, it's George Lopez. This particular segment goes back to August of 1992. Doing the math, 19 years ago.
Well, apparently so. Apparently so. You're in town coming soon. I was excited to hear about that.
I'm in town Tuesday.
He's
You
in
come
town.
to see me?
I hope to. I really would like to meet
My
you.
favorite area. That's my favorite area.
Well, I don't know if it might be your favorite area. I was reading up on something that happened to you one of the first times that you were here in the city. You were confused to be something that you were not.
I confused to be a valet.
Is that a true story?
Yeah.
Somebody
I won't
looked.
even say the club. I was standing outside the club, and my friends, who are non-Latinos, they think that I was making it up. That I was going for the sympathy. No, man, this guy drives up, takes his keys out, and goes, there you go.
And of course, you were coming to perform.
I was coming to perform.
Well,
I took the car. I still drive it around town.
You have not been doing this comedy thing as long as people might think. Before you decided to be, well, I guess you were always funny, but before you decided that you could make a living at it, what were you doing?
I was working in Van Nuys here in California at a factory. But what I did was, I believed in myself, and I went for it. And 5 short years later, I've done over 25 national television shows, including 2 weeks ago with Ice-T, my 8th Arsenio.
Wow. I mean,
Because all I do is work, man. That's all I want to do. This is what I'm doing. You know, very few people can get up in the morning and actually say they're doing something that they've always wanted to do. And I was one of those few people. But I decided what I wanted to do, and I did, and took whatever actions I had to do to be a stand-up. I mean, I didn't want to be people say, well, why don't you want to be a doctor? I want to be a stand-up. Because as I started working, more of my beliefs about being positive and being Latino started coming out. I knew they were in there, but I needed the stage time and the access for them to come out.
so even when you were working at this Van Nuys place that you worked at, you still had it in the back of your mind that you wanted to break out and do some
I thought about
comedy?
it every day, man. I thought about it every day. You know, when you're doing something, when you want to do something and you know you should be doing it, it bothers you. It haunts you. And I wouldn't have been happy there. I would have been a guy making $9.35 for the next 20 years.
And what was it that eventually just pushed you and you decided to jump in with both feet?
I think the fact that the boss's brother-in-law wanted my job, man. The dude would always come up to me and say, so when is it that you're actually thinking about leaving? And he says, because, and then I found out that his brother-in-law wanted my job, so I told him, look, here, see this date right here? July 17th, this is when I'm leaving. Don't bother me anymore. And that was like 4 months before.
Those who I guess were close to you and advised you back then, what was their reaction? Because you probably had the card stacked against you already, being a Latino who wanted to get into
Show business.
Yeah, exactly, show business.
Yeah, you know what it was that when I told, they deprogrammed you. They did government work, so they'd come in, and you had to be deprogrammed by personnel, where they didn't want you to tell any secrets about what they used in their machinery. So the lady says, so you're leaving us to work where? And I said, I'm leaving to become a stand-up comedian. And she looked up at me, and her face was like, oh, okay. But then she said, yeah, we'll keep your job open for 6 months in case you want to come back. And I said, I ain't coming back. And even if I did come back, I wouldn't come back here.
Now, when you were in school and everything else, were you one of those types who were considered class clowns, or did you play it straight?
You know what, I was, and I regret that I was. Because I should have paid more attention in school, man. You want to be cool and you want to be, hey, man, George is funny. But George wasn't learning a lot, which I could use now, man. See, in 70 and 80, when I was getting out of school, I thought that was cool to be like a boggle and be funny. But now, when I'm out, I need all the things I could have learned in high school, man. That's why it's important for kids to stay in school, because you think that it's only right there, those 3 years or 4 years, but you got a whole life ahead of you, and what you learn in school is what you're going to take with you. Because, you don't go to school when you're out of work. When you're working, you don't open a book. Maybe you read the paper. That's it.
But you did okay. You graduated and everything else.
I graduated. Actually, I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school.
Well, did you go on and go to college, or did you go straight to
You know,
work?
I didn't go to college. I went to a trade school and took electronics, but I mean, I wanted to do stand-up, man. It was always in the back of my head. And I had actually done stand-up when I was 18 years old. I spent the summer at the Comedy Store here in Hollywood.
Wow. Now, that's something that a lot of listeners probably are not aware of.
Yeah, they're not aware that I spent the summer trying to, and I wasn't mature enough. I wasn't mature enough to stick with it. I didn't have the maturity to it was more of a hobby, and I thought it was going to be something that would happen overnight, which, you know, you can dream, but that's like it doesn't happen overnight. Especially with Latinos, you know, the television, if you watch television, unless you're watching Univision or a Spanish station, you see very few Latinos on television.
That is true.
Something I'm trying to change.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I don't watch 90210.
No, 90210, put a Latino, call it 902 Juano. Come on, let's go.
Well, that's my exact point. I don't even watch the show because I can't believe that in the entire state of California, even Beverly Hills, you're not going to find Latinos in high school.
No, exactly. You know what? And I think as Latinos, we have a lot of power economically. We got a lot of dollars that we spend. So if we see something that we don't like, we actually should not buy the product, man. Because the only places to hit these people where it hurts is in the pocketbook.
That's true. You know what I found interesting reading up on you is that I've seen you on TV and I've seen you perform, and the reason I wanted to do this interview is because, you know, I'm a fan of yours, you know, for the last couple of years or so, ever since cable popped up with all these comedy shows, and we can see George Lopez almost anywhere.
Yeah, thanks.
Reading the material, you were shaped, or you were, I guess Rodney Dangerfield had something to do with the style that you use.
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield. You know why? Because when I started writing, when you start writing or when you start working, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a doctor, you have your own style, which comes out the more you work. So what happened was that I started writing. I didn't write long stories like Cosby was talking about his kids and this. I wrote one-liners, man, that got to the point and got to the facts and that were funny quick, which helps me on television because you only have 5 minutes.
That's
you
true.
need to be funny fast. You can't take 3 minutes to warm up. You only got 2 left. You need to be funny from the get, and that's what, you know, that's the style that I chose, a one-line style.
Speaking about maturity as well, a little more than a year ago, I did an interview with Paul Rodriguez, who was in town, and I asked him, you know, to name some of the Latinos that he thought might be able to, you know, to follow in the footsteps of comedy, and he did mention your name. I bring that up because you talked about maturity as well, and your style really is not the style that Paul Rodriguez used to get him to the point where he's at now.
No, you know what? The best compliment is that there's no comparison.
No, there
That's
isn't.
the best compliment to me. Because Hollywood seems to do that Noah's Ark one at a time. You know, since they got Paul, they got it covered. But that's not the way it is. It's a little tougher to break in because they have one guy, man. And one guy that will do almost anything. You know what I mean?
So really, him actually making it to the point where he's at now, I get. You say that makes it a little more difficult for people like you?
It makes it a little more difficult because I'm trying to do it from the positive point of view. I mean, first of all, I'm very proud of who I am, even if I wasn't a comic. I'm proud to be Mexican and American. That's why.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked you the question, because they've seen you on TV. If they haven't seen you on Arsenio, they've seen you on Ski Patrol. If they haven't seen you on Ski Patrol, you've done other talk shows.
You know, this week I was on A&E. I did Byron Allen and MTV just this week. This has been Lopez week. And I might have a commercial running during the golf tournament today.
You know what? I wasn't even going to bring that up because I forgot all about that, but I guess people don't usually say George Lopez and golf in the same sentence.
I know. Hey. Lee Trevino, Chi-Chi, we're out there.
Yeah, but that's it.
So I have a commercial running during. It only runs this weekend nationally. It's kind of a regional. It's U.S. West for a telephone company. That's what we should have used, U.S. West to connect.
I probably should have used that. So what's a typical week for George Lopez like then?
A lot of writing during the day, a lot of news, a lot of watching the news. I go to acting class twice a week, and I work about 4 times a week.
So it's not like everybody might think you can just get in front of a microphone, tell a joke, get a laugh, and you're rich.
Yeah, that's it. No, I study, man.
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
I'm studying now. Yeah, I do that. And I mean, I'm out. I help my friends write, and I have the people who handle Jerry Seinfeld handle me. Those are my managers.
When that's not such a bad thing.
And they do all of the business side of it, and I just have to worry about being funny, man.
So when you get to the city, is it strictly performing, or are you going to actually try and do some things?
Well, I'll probably try to do some things. I'll try to do some things, and I'll work a lot, and I'll go out and see. Yeah, sure, because I don't get as neurotic as I used to about performing, man. I actually like to work, so I don't have to sweat it during the day anymore, because now I'm consistently funny.
Well, it does look like you're having fun while you're performing, and I guess that's
man, I love it. Because it's what I've always wanted to do.
Oh, well.
So there's like a peace that comes with that, knowing that even if as long as it lasts, even if it was to end next year, I'd be like, hey, what can I do now? I can kick back, because I've had the stressful job. I can kick back.
Really? How long could you see yourself doing this?
Well, I can see myself doing it. Let me see. I'd like to continue doing stand-up, and you can be in your 40s and do stand-up.
That is true.
So as long as I can continue to be positive, I'll continue to do it.
And you're going to continue with the acting bug as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. But you know what? Acting is... I get called to do parts, immigrant parts that are derogatory, gang-banging parts, robber parts, a character named Muerte. They wanted me to come and do a character named Muerte. I told them I couldn't do it. So I told myself that if I have to do that to act, then I won't act, and I'll just do stand-up. It's not that important to act if those are the parts that are out there for me.
What happened to what separated the Ski Patrol part from some of these other parts that you have to turn down just because they kind of cut your own kind down?
Yeah, I'm developing on the project with the people, Shapiro West, who handles Seinfeld.
All right.
So we'll develop a nice project.
Well, that's good to hear. Hopefully, I'm going to get out this week because I really would like to see you live. I've seen you on TV enough, and I've been going to comedy clubs for the last few years just as a hobby over the weekends. And I've got to tell people, if you see George Lopez on Arsenio's show or on Comedy Strict Live, you're talking 5 or 10 minutes. But to see an entire show, your show's got to be 30, 40, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it'll come nowhere near what you see on TV. TV is like a taste of it. At least that's what I've noticed going out to comedy clubs. I mean, I love to watch people perform for an hour or so because there's a whole lot more commentaries that you can make and observations you can make than on TV. Boom, you got to go in 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I'm not dirty as much as I'm political. It's easy to be dirty. It's harder to be political and funny about issues that are happening today. If people are going to leave and go, the only thing I talked about was my organ, what good does that do me? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess you've been able to do it on your own terms, and that's just another reason to admire you for what you've been able to
That's one of the
accomplish.
reasons you can do so many shows is I continue to write, and I continue to write clean. Because, I mean, if I was dirty and funny, nobody would know me. But I write clean, I try to get myself out there as much as I can,
well, that
and become a profile already.
Well, you can't. The dirtiness becomes a novelty after a while, and how long do they last?
Really? Because somebody else is going to come along that's dirty, and then you're really the same. You don't stand out.
Well, that and the fact that you're here today and gone tomorrow, if you're talking about some of the more dirty comics, if we should use that term, one of the biggest names a year ago you don't hear about today.
That's exactly. And what happened? You write them out, you make money for as long as you can. You do something wrong, they turn your back on you, man. They've made their money. They walk away from the betting window going, wow, we made a lot. Good. Next one. Next up.
All right. Well, I do want to thank you for accepting the call. I imagine it took a little longer than you expected, but
no problem.
we've got a primarily Hispanic audience, and anytime I can get my hands on somebody like you that can say some positive things to the young people who might be listening, I'm going to grab it, because here in the city, there's too many things going wrong.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
There really
you're doing
is.
the right thing. No, you're doing the right thing.
And hopefully coming from you, maybe coming from me on occasion, with the work with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Chicago, these kids can realize that there's a little bit more to it than the drugs and the gangs and everything else. And it's a big battle that we're fighting, too, because I'm taking the bus every Sunday to come here to do radio, and I look at guys half my age driving around in these big old cars because they're doing what they're doing.
But it fades, man. It fades. It's not legal, for one, and they go away. And you just watch the news and see guys that get busted.
No, it doesn't last. It doesn't
End
last.
of the ride, man. And when you don't think it can happen to you, it happens to you.
And it's interesting, too, because the hardcore kids who are doing it, who eventually end up at Cook County Jail, will call us up, and they're going to tell us that they have found religion and that they will never drive a crooked path again, and they see the error of their ways, and kind of a little too late. They're locked up now.
Oh yeah. That's what we need. That's what we need less of. We need more people making individual decisions, and get that pride, and not be lazy to say, oh, it can't happen. It's too hard. It's hard, but it's worth it.
I believe it's worth it too. And for what it's worth, I do thank you for allowing me to call you, even though I had a dial direct. And
I'll see you this week.
Yeah, I hope to be there. Now, you say Tuesday through Friday.
Sunday.
Through Sunday. So I don't absolutely positively have to go on Tuesday.
No, man, you can come anytime you want.
Pick any of those. That's Laugh Factory, 4395 Fox Valley Center. That's in Aurora. Aurora, by the way, is one of the Chicago suburbs that is slowly but surely getting together a Hispanic population of its own that we never would have thought of 5 or 6 years ago.
You know, that's what I heard. And that's why I'm excited to be going down there.
So that's good. Any plans on visiting the city?
I probably will. I'll probably go into the city a couple of days. What I'd like to see less of when I was in Aurora last time, the Confederate flag, man. I'd like to see less of the Confederate flag. And I want people, to only speak for themselves. They can't say, oh, look at that guy. No, I'm only saying, for me, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, you know what, I know Edward James Olmos, and I don't think I would have been an American Me.
Even though that was an acclaimed movie.
Even though, yeah. I don't think, I just personally don't think. That I go speak to a lot of kids, and they seem to get off on this gangbanging thing, man. They seem to actually, because that's all they see on television, so they go, wow, man, I'd like to be a cholo in this movie, man. But you could be more, you don't have to be a cholo in every movie. That's why I'm tired of these movies coming out that just do gang. In the 70s, they had like a exploitation film. There was like Boulevard Nights, and every movie seemed to be gang related. Here we are, 92, and another movie comes out that's gang related.
Wow, but things are looking up though for Hispanics.
Sure they are.
In the movies and on TV too.
Yep.
And even to the point where, you know, we talked about Paul Rodriguez earlier, and I don't want to harp on it, but he too has changed his style to the point where he is doing more positive things. I think maybe he finally realized that young people are watching you.
Young people are watching, and the times change. If you do that type of material that you did before, you're almost a parody of yourself. You're almost like, wow, this dude hasn't changed with what's going on. Nobody wants to hear that Sanford and Son type humor. It's different now.
That's weird.
So you can still talk about being ethnic, but it doesn't have to come from a negative place, man. That's the more difficult thing, is to be positive and be funny.
When I read that you also visit boys and girls clubs and deal with kids in terms of more of a one-on-one basis, how's that like?
Hey, that's pretty good, because when I was growing up, all my role models were either they were black athletes, baseball players, or white comedians, or black comedians. I didn't have anybody that was a role model that was actually my color, man. So what you want to do now is you want to go back to kids and tell them that they can achieve anything that they want. You know, but you have to stay in school. I mean, if you're in 10th grade and you drop, what does your future hold for you?
And I guess too, if the comedy thing didn't happen for you, at the very least, you've got an education to fall back on.
Of course. You know what? I've become a man, I would think. I've become a man. You know, I grew up in an area where the guys tended to stay in their area, like a fishbowl. It's like growing up in a fishbowl. You grow and you marry and you die within a 5-mile radius of where you come from. It's good to get out, man, and see. I used to hate white people because I never saw any. I never saw any. The ones I saw were on television or driving nice cars. But you know, all that can happen to you.
Now, how did you get out of that whole deal? Because if you look at what's on TV, especially after the Rodney King thing, it would seem as if everywhere you turn, there are gangbangers and there are drugs and there are bad influences, but you managed to stay away from all that.
Yeah, you know what? I managed to stay away from it because I made my own decisions. I didn't make peer pressure make the decision for me. I knew that is bad. Man, I have friends that even to this day, people come up to me and see me and go, hey, remember this guy? And whenever they say remember, you know it's not something, yeah, you know he didn't just win a trip to Mazatlan.
No.
They say remember this guy, you know he's dead, man.
Chances are, yeah, something bad happened.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, let me tell you this. Friday night, I was at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood, where they do comic strip live, and Rodney King was in the audience. Rodney King came to the show.
Wow. Did you spend some time sitting with him?
They asked me not to do Rodney King material, but I did some material about the Los Angeles Police Department.
And you were there during the entire riot thing?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I grew up in the area that Foothill Police Department, in the area that happened to Rodney King. That police department patrols where I grew up. And that one incident was not an isolated incident. That stuff has been going on for a long time because you have they'll have African Americans and Latinos living together, and not a lot of officers speak Spanish. So what better way to get your point across than to take out a club and point somebody in the right direction? Instead of hiring officers that speak Spanish, trying to make it better, they just hire people who are not bilingual and just use aggression to get their point across.
So now then, what does Los Angeles have to do to kind of rebound from this? It's been a few months, but it seems as if there's still some tense moments.
Oh, no, there's a wide gap between the authorities and the police. What they need to do is do more community relations. At that station, Foothill, where that Rodney King incident happened, instead of going out in the community and telling people that we're not all bad, they built a wall halfway around the station, a brick wall.
And Hollywood being in California doesn't help either when the films that they make have you
exactly.
the top button and the bandana wrapped around your head. And
it's the trickle-down theory, man. And where does it stop? Well, that part of it stops with me because I wouldn't do that.
I've never met a girl like you in my life.
Apollo music on AM 1590 WCGO, where Chicago goes for Club Kids Radio. I really don't want to fade it out, man. We've been on the Celebrity Hotline with George Lopez, a conversation from 1992, August 23rd to be exact. It's 2011. Puerto Rican festivities are happening right now in the Humboldt Park community. 19 years ago, George was on the Celebrity Hotline, and we had about an hour's worth of conversation. But I have a couple of other conversations, one from, I want to say, 1993, and the other one from 2002. And I want to play excerpts of that so you can hear as things progress for George Lopez, as he's now blown up. He's a talk show host. He is here in town for the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. I apologize for not being able to get an all-new interview with George Lopez, but the guy is so busy and he's got so many people working for him and with him that it's difficult to get a hold of him. And I did try. I really did. What else did we play? Sheila E.'s Glamorous Life. Wanted to play that for Sandy, one of her favorite songs, and she turned me on to the video from the American Music Awards, and it was an excellent choice. And then I went on YouTube and I found the original video, and I sent that to Sandy over on her Facebook, because we're all old schoolers in heart. And George Lopez, he uses his War as his theme song, and that's an old school song in itself. And so we decided to go with some old school music. Cameos, Word Up, old school from the 1980s, I suppose. And then we went to the 1970s at the top of the hour with McFadden and Whitehead, Ain't No Stopping Us Now, as I sent that out to the graduates of Von Humboldt School 2011. Sitting ovation. I gave the commencement speech, and that will be up on YouTube very, very soon, so you could hear. And then you can judge for yourself. And you could even tell me. You could me, Facebook me, whatever you need to do to me, poke me, and tell me just how well or not well I did that. My thanks again to Angel Castillo and Miss Guillermo and Miss King for allowing me to do the commencement address for class of 2011 at Von Humboldt School. That is the first school-based club that I ran in 2002 before we went over to the all brand new edition of the Miguel A. Barreto Union League Boys and Girls Club. I also have to make a dedication to Laura Lopez. I was at her wake about a week ago. Laura was a former student at the Von Humboldt School when she was 8 years old. She was diagnosed with leukemia, and she passed away this year, 8 years later. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the wake, and I talked about that a little bit as well, because the challenge became, you've already done 8 years, right? You went from first grade to 8th grade. Now you're about to graduate, and there's a lot that we expect from you. Now, you thought these 8 years were hard. Laura spent 8 years battling leukemia, finished her studies at Von Humboldt School, graduated, then went to the Noble Street Charter High School system, and she passed away before she was able to graduate, but she continued to study, and if she couldn't study at school, she studied at home. If she couldn't study at home or school, she's studying in the hospital while she's battling this disease. And much respect to Laura Lopez and her family. I work with Miguel, who's her father, and Sue Ellen Colon is her cousin. And she was a club kid who we first hired when she was 14 years old, and now she's like 30. And she works for David Orr in the Cook County office, and she's doing a lot of good work. Well, you don't want to continue to hear my voice, so you're going to hear somebody else's voice for about 60 seconds. When we return, more Club Kids Radio with the Harvester and G-Lo. Well, that sounds like a bad show, doesn't it?
Alex Rodriguez of the New York Yankees talks about the Boys and Girls Clubs.
When I was 9, my mom had to work 2 full-time jobs to keep our family together. She didn't get home till 11. The streets were there, but for my sake, so was the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club is a positive place for kids to go every day after school, to do homework, make friends, and play ball.
Eddie Rodriguez ran the Boys and Girls Club in my neighborhood, and he still does today. He taught me to believe in myself, to be positive, stay grounded, and to keep my eye on the ball. I still come back to train at the Boys and Girls Club. With Eddie, he's like a father to me.
There are more than 3,000 Boys and Girls Clubs where caring people like Eddie are helping our kids succeed.
Does it work? It did for me. Support the Boys and Girls Clubs, the positive place for kids.
Call 1-800-854-CLUB.
Wake up, wake up dancing, wake up dancing, wake up dancing. Harv Roman's gonna make you dance. Wake up, Harv is gonna make you dance.
That's me here at 1590 AM WCGO, where Chicago goes for Club Kids Radio on a Saturday morning. Exciting in this Saturday morning because this weekend is the big weekend. You've got the downtown Puerto Rican parade occurring, and then it leads to the Division Street Puerto Rican parade, which leads to the final 2 days of the carnival in Humboldt Park. And it's going to be a lot of fun. If you can get out there, go ahead and get out there. It's a nice celebration of community, culture, family, pride. I told these kids, own your names, own your community, own your culture, be proud of where you come from. And I'm not going to preach anymore because I know that you're waiting for more words and a little bit of music, the words of George Lopez and Harv Roman from years ago. And a new song years ago that never got released, but it's a killer cut. And every year at about this time, I like to play it, because of the Puerto Rican Day festivities, right? This is Saint from New York. This is entitled Puerto Rico. When we return, more Club Kids Radio. Harv Roman, George Lopez. We're sitting here with George Lopez live at the Funny Firm. George, how are you? They can't see this on the radio. We shook hands.
We shook hands and we hugged, and you found it difficult to hug me. How come?
You know what? Because I don't hug people.
You don't really?
I don't. You're interviewing me now. I'm not used to that.
Why?
Because we never did that. We never did that. We don't. I've never said I love you to my parents. They've never said it to me. I've only said it to the one person, and that's the person that I fell in love with, and that's it. And we don't. It's weird. I find it strange.
Isn't that? Yeah. You know, when I was growing up, I never really said that to my parents, and my grandfather passed away in '88, and that's one of the regrets that I have, man, was that I was never able to really tell him the way we felt about each other.
It's weird. I sit there and I think the same thing. I'm like, man, I should say it. And sometimes you sit there and like there have been times where I've tried to hug my mother, or she'll come up to me because she hasn't seen me for a while, and then my arms will just drop.
Yeah, it's an important thing because the human contact, man, is very important. You know, people that you meet and that you like. I mean, you know, there's really no guarantees, especially the way things are in the society, that you're going to be around till you're 70 or 17, man. You know, so I think that in order for us to become quote unquote a kinder, gentler nation, I think that we need to have contact with each other, because I think that one of the reasons why we don't really get along too well is because we don't want to know each other, man. We want to stay in our own segregated areas, which I think is a problem that they have not only here in Chicago but across the country, you know, because here in Chicago you have where Polish people live in a certain area and Mexican people and Jewish people, and I don't really think that does good for anybody. You know, segregation is not good, man. Look at what's happening in South Africa. It just doesn't really, I don't think we need to be like South Africa here in the United States. I think one of the reasons we fear each other is because we don't know a lot about each other. Does that make sense?
That's one thing I did notice about
tonight's show. Number one, it was almost entirely different from the last time I saw you, which was just a few months ago. Number two, you seem to do more stuff on current events and social things that people really ought to think about.
You know what? One thing that I wanted to convey, because in the beginning you're just worrying about being funny, and I mean there's a lot of comedians that are funny, but you really don't remember them, you know, or you never see them again. So with me and the fact that, you know, I'm on Arsenio every 4 months or Comic Strip Live, and you know a lot of people come and see me because they've seen me on television. I'd like them to see an actual, a real person, man, because I'm comfortable on stage enough to make people laugh and be comfortable myself. And I think that one of the reasons why people laugh on nights like this, where it's not really that full, is because people feel comfortable with me. Like you saw the girl and the first guy, and they weren't very funny, but then again, they weren't very personable either. It's like they were doing an act. And with me, I'm doing an act, but I also want to be like I'm a human being, man, you know? Because it's what comedy's what I've always wanted to do my whole life, and I feel very comfortable with it. So I think in order for, like me being a Mexican guy, in order for people to laugh at things that I think are really idiotic, like 11 o'clock news or cops, and you know, they think that we're all gang related in some way, and we're not. So I think in order to break down a lot of the tensions that exist between like white people and Mexican people is to be like that. It's to be more personable and have more current events. And I'm not angry, but I'm angry inside. But I'm not. It doesn't come across angry, because if I did come across angry, then nobody would really laugh, man, or nobody would come and see me. You know.
When did you develop this particular style? I know at the age of 18, you probably were doing what the other comics were doing today, and it's just one-liners.
Well, what happened was that, you know, the more comfortable I became with being on stage, the more I thought, what do I want to achieve? You know, do I want to just be a comedian that talks about things that I think have no value, like flying? And, you know, it's very safe, because when you talk about flying and talk about even driving in some way, because my driving stuff is different. You talk about actual police versus the normal person, but I think that you don't want to give too much away about yourself. So much like Richard Pryor or comedian, or like Lenny Bruce, or comedians that really gave of themselves, you put yourself in more of a vulnerable position, because you're dealing with the human side. You're not dealing with an act, because you know a lot of it has to do with me. So it's like you're putting yourself out there, and if people don't like you, then you take it more personally. Like if you do an act that nobody can relate to, like those first two, you don't really like them, and you don't really know them. So you know, there's nothing that they've given in their act that gives you an impression that you know anything about them. You know, I think you saw those comedians, and you don't know anything about how they feel about certain issues or how they think about certain things. It's always jokes, man. It's nothing that's real. It's all jokes. You know, so I wanted to be real, because I think that with Latinos and just people of color in general, I think we need more real people, man. I think because we're way behind as far as television and movies. You know, I still think television is black and white in a lot of ways, because we're not on any television shows. Like I did that thing about salsa commercials. You see salsa commercials, and salsa is $1 billion business, but when you see the commercials and the actors, they're all Americans, they're all white. You know, that's not an indicative way of the way America is, man. We consume a lot of that stuff, but yet they don't use us in any of the commercials and stuff. So I think that's what I'm trying to point out.
Kind of leads us to the political humor that you did tonight, in that obviously you feel that Latinos, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Cubans can get more involved in the process, and I guess your style is to kind of shed a little light on it by making people laugh, but at the same time, you're absolutely right about some of the things that you point out in terms of the voting process and everything else.
Well, I think that, you know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it's 1993, and this is the first administration where there's ever been Latinos in the cabinet, you know, with Bill Clinton. So in a way, I respect Bill Clinton for putting two Latinos, the Secretary of Housing, Henry Cisneros, and then the Secretary of Transportation, which is an incredible feat, man. And also, I thought that we would have one in the Supreme Court, and we still didn't even know yet. But I would like to see a woman, a Latina woman, in the Supreme Court when that guy is leaving. But I think that as people, we don't realize the power that we have, you know, with our money and with our vote, man.
Yo me voy pa' Puerto Rico.
Borinquen me llama
a comer bacalaíto.
Borinquen me llama,
es la isla del encanto.
Borinquen me llama,
por eso la quiero tanto.
Borinquen me llama,
yo le dedico este canto.
Borinquen me llama, es la tierra de mis padres y también de mis hermanos y de todo borincano, los de allá y los de Chicago. Borinquen me llama, Borinquen me llama, Puerto Rico, mi isla bella, es la tierra del coquí, fue aquí donde nací, por eso la quiero tanto. Borinquen me llama, Borinquen me llama, y a son de bomba y plena te dedico esta canción, que es cultura y tradición de mi isla borincana. Borinquen me llama, Borinquen me llama.
I do agree with you with what you say, and I don't know if I ever thanked you for coming by to the club that one day. And it's very interesting because when you first walked in with David, the kids were wondering, who it was. You pop in a tape, and there you are with Arsenio Hall. All of a sudden, the kids' eyes get wide open, and all of a sudden, they're interested in speaking to you. And that's why I asked you that question, because you are the type of people that will shape others, whether or not you ask for that type of status.
You know what? It really is that important, because let's just say that 20 years ago, I was much like a kid, like one of those kids, and if you dream, what's the worst thing that can happen, man? If it doesn't come true, you tried it, and if it does come true, then you get to live a wonderful life, man. I was 12, I wanted to be a comedian, I travel, I love Chicago, I've been to New York, I've been on television, and I'm enjoying myself, and you have the liberty of saying to people, even though I'm having a bad day, man, I'm doing what I want to do. This is what I always wanted to do, and I'm doing it. So I don't think that people really understand what a gift they have, like in life, man, and the opportunity to learn. It's like you need to learn when you're young, because it's like fuel for the rest of your life. If you're going on a trip, you'd want to take everything you could eat and gas, and so I think that knowledge is like that. Knowledge is what you need to have when you're young to take on that long trip, man, that we call life.
And it's the parents, the adults, that have to embed this in their minds, and a lot of times the parents kind of wait until it's too late. Then they're teenagers and they're wondering what they did wrong.
Exactly. But then a lot of times you come from a broken home where there's only one parent or maybe no parents. I grew up where it was my grandparents and there wasn't a lot of contact. We didn't, I wasn't supervised. They never checked to see if I did my homework. But what I needed to understand was the fact that, I needed to do the best for me. And I really wasn't concerned that much about my parents. I'm glad they were there, but I wouldn't use it as an excuse if I had failed in comedy. I wouldn't look back and say, well, it's because I came from a broken home. No, man, I don't really buy that, because, if you do, then you just do the best that you can with the situation that you have. Like having you in the boys club, that's a nice place to have, man. Having somebody like you where you can go and talk, and if you have a problem, you're able to talk to somebody, because I doubt that you'll be able to talk to your mother or father, but you can go and talk to somebody else, man. It's important that we learn to communicate as young kids. If you have a problem, man, you need to talk to somebody, because if you hold it in, then that's when you have problems. When you're later, you have maybe domestic violence problems. You don't know how to communicate with a woman, or at work, you get upset. So I think we need to, another thing, communicate more.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, and nobody said it was going to be easy. But things that are worthwhile take time and take effort. I can go on the street and make drug money too, man. But is it that what I want to do? I want to live my life looking over my shoulder, man. A car drives by and I duck. I don't want to live in fear, man. It's not worth it.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because a few years ago I spoke at my grade school graduation and I told them the exact same thing. But we were talking earlier about not being able to, I couldn't hug you.
Right.
And I told the kids the one thing that I did regret was that my parents never asked me how my report card was. They never asked me how was school. We never had any real conversations until now. I'm 29 years old, and I told them the most important thing that you can do is deal with your parents, talk to them, tell them what's going on. If they don't ask you questions, just tell them anyway, because eventually you have to go back to that nest and deal with them. And I still feel strange that I'm not as close to them as I want to be, but I'm not closer than I used to be.
but it's not too late because they're still alive, you know. They're still alive, and I think that if you don't communicate, then I think when you as people get older and have children, it's a cycle, man. You won't talk to your kids, and they won't talk to you. You know, and it goes generations. That's why I think gang violence is generation, father to son, to grandson to. It is. Why? Because time goes on, and then nobody communicates.
I've seen 6 and 7 year olds with earrings and ponytails and the Nikes. It's amazing. Let's lighten things up a little bit. This is not like your normal, typical Arsenio or talk show interview.
We wouldn't talk like this on Arsenio, but I think this is more important than actually being joking. You know, we can always joke.
At any point, though, can they sit down and talk the way we're talking on a national level, or is it just not safe, or ratings is a problem, or what?
I think it's ratings is the problem, man. I think that people would turn away. I think that's why there are shows like, I don't even think on Oprah, or I think that on Sally, I don't think they even get to that level, you know.
All over the world, everybody join in, start a love train. People all over the world now, join in, start a love train. The next stop that we make will be England. Tell all the folks in Russia and China too. Don't you know that it's time to get on board and let this train keep on riding on through? People all over the world, don't need no money. Join in, come on, start a love train. Don't need no tickets, come on, join, ride this train, y'all. Start a love train. All of your brothers over in Africa.
With, I should now say actor, comedian, as opposed to comedian, actor George Lopez. George, how are you?
What's up, Harv?
Things are okay. Not as okay for me as they are for you. Things have been going really well for you now, huh?
Well, you know what? I've known you a long time. I've known you for about 10 years, and since the time I used to come to the Funny Firm in Chicago, you know, the main objective for any comedian really is to try to get his own situation comedy. And right now, I'm in the middle of it, man, and I'm just working out there, trying to promote the show and making sure it stays on the air.
Now, you're making me famous all over again because I still have the pictures from 10 years or so ago when you came to the Union League Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, they were great kids. And when I come back to Chicago, I'll go back.
That'll be so cool. You know, we were in California just a couple of weeks ago, and I completely forgot that we may have been able to say hello to you.
Yeah.
And by the time we got out there in Anaheim, it was too late. I didn't have my phone book with me, didn't have my address book with me, but you're still based on the West Coast, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. I live out there near Burbank, near Warner Brothers.
Well, tell me how the last 10 or so years have gone. When we originally met you at another radio station, you were coming in, you were doing stand-up, of course, at the Funny Firm. You became buddies with some of us and met some kids at the Boys and Girls Club. And I remember I interviewed Danny Bonaducci during that same time, and he was saying, you know, George Lopez is one of my favorite comedians because we were talking about comedians, and he said they're developing a comedy for him, you know. This was 10 years ago.
Yeah, you know what, we've gone through different configurations of people wanting to be involved and trying to do a show, but you know what it is, Harv, is everybody that I had been involved with before this show, the minute you told them no, they went away, or they lost all their enthusiasm. But I met Sandra Bullock, and she wanted to executive produce the show and be involved in it, and I told her, you know, this is going to be hard because you're going to try to put something on the air that people have failed in the past, and it's almost impossible, and she said, you know, to let her worry about that.
You know, that's an interesting story you tell, because if you look at the latest edition of the TV Guide, they talk about the fact that Sandra Bullock just happens to be a fan of comedy. She just happens to see you performing, and she liked you so much that she invited people to watch you perform again, and this time it was executives?
Absolutely. She, we got, through Sandra's, you know, influence, we got Bruce Helford, who created Drew Carey, to come and see me, and then we were in business, the three of us, and then we went to ABC, and they bought 13 shows, Harv, without even a script, just on the strength of the people involved.
And now, explain the show a little bit. You are quoted as saying that you're funny as opposed to Latino, and I remember when we first met, the big issue was that Latinos were having trouble getting their foot in the door.
You know, this is just a guy who has unresolved issues in his past, in his childhood, from his mother, and he's trying to raise his 2 kids with his wife, and it's hard to incorporate himself in their lives when he doesn't really know the right thing to do because he didn't have a father figure.
No, it is funny that you talk about all this stuff because these are issues, or at least in the first episode, because we've only had 1 episode so far, Wednesday at 7:30 on Channel 7 here in Chicago. The issues you're facing are kind of similar situations. It's not really stereotypical stuff.
You know what? I try to keep it pretty real to what I was going through, and I know that all guys, regardless of their ethnic background, have issues with their mother, man. I mean, I'm 40 years old, and my grandmother raised me. She's 82. She still treats me like I'm 9 years old.
It was funny because in Wednesday's episode, of course, you're faced with having to make a decision. And you're either going to fire your mom or fire one of your buddies. And then you've got a whole nother issue where you've got your daughter who doesn't want to take swimming lessons.
Right.
It's very typical stuff. And you're a family man now, too, which you weren't exactly 10 years ago. So
no, I wasn't.
How much of this are you pulling out of your real-life experience?
You know, we try to keep it pretty real. You know, I tend to be more like my mother than I would admit to. And it's funny because this guy's got these old world kind of issues. And he doesn't really, I would never admit that, no guy would ever admit, yeah, I'm just like, you always say, I don't want to be like my parents. But this guy, when you look at him, he really is a lot like his mother. And even though they had that kind of, they bump heads relationship, the bottom line is that you know that she loves her son. And even though she's trying to tell him how to live his life, she thinks it's for his own good.
I would imagine that you exceeded all expectations because looking at the ratings for Wednesday's show, you had over 10 million viewers for a debut episode.
Absolutely. It was great. Some of the reviews are just that. The reviews and critics can be hard on the show, for whatever reason. But this show, I'm trying to keep it family. Harv, I really do believe that the time is right for a show and a family like this to succeed on TV. Bernie Mac is great. Ray Romano's great. This show is good, and it can be great if it stays on the air. And this show is going to succeed or fail by the strength of the viewers. They ultimately are the ones who decide whether a show stays or not.
Now, I forgot what I was going to ask you. Actually, I'm listening to your response to this thing about the 10 million viewers. How will you be judged because you're following, like you're saying, the footsteps of a Ray Romano or Jerry Seinfeld or Drew Carey? These are all stand-up comics. Bernie Mac, who now have shows. Now, in some ways, people are going to compare you to them, and in other ways, that's kind of pressure-filled, isn't it?
Well, he would have talked about pressure, but we were running out of time, and yeah, this always happens. The hour goes, and there are still words and music that we have not yet aired. My thanks to George Lopez for conversations of the past, hopefully conversations in the future. My congratulations to the Von Humboldt School class of 2011. Sitting ovation, also everybody over at CICS Irving Park for another great, incredible year. And everybody over at the Union League Boys and Girls Club who I got to visit not that long ago. What did we listen to? We listened to Company B's, Fascination. We listened to the OJs with Love Train. We listened to Grupo Yuba with Me Voy a Puerto Rico. And we listened to Saint Puerto Rico because it is the weekend that everybody's going to be in Humboldt Park, either at the carnival, the parade, or the concerts. Now we get to leave. My thanks to you, the listener, for putting up with me to DJ Club Kids Radio Saturday morning. How much fun is it here on 1590 AM WCGO, where Chicago goes for Club Kids Radio?
So glad we made